Problems in prosecution and punishment of white-collar crime. 1. Financially well-off criminals. White-collar criminals, whether in business or public office, wield tremendous powers and influence over institutions and people, working therein as facilitators to their crimes. Since the wealth so acquired by such people is ill-gotten, in order to conceal the crimes and the wealth, such persons transfer the ill-gotten wealth in the name of their spouses and children, or in foreign banks, or in the name of offshore companies, to conceal any evidence and remove all traces of the movement of their wealth from the country of origin. 2. High-profile defense lawyers. Punishment is almost impossible with high-profile lawyers being engaged by the accused to defend white-collar criminals, challenging the court's jurisdiction, constitutional guarantees, fair trial, claim of innocence, and proof of guilt beyond a shadow of doubt. 3. Lack of credibility. The institutions responsible for preventing and controlling white-collar crime and corruption do not enjoy credibility. The agencies formed to control and eradicate corruption are generally believed to be victims of corruption themselves and tools of victimization in the hands of the political masters. 4. Political interference. Political interference is a constant irritant in the working of agencies. To avoid this problem, the chairman of NAB in 2005 delegated certain powers to the regional director generals. This has transferred crucial decision-making, like ordering investigations, arrests, filing of references, etc., from individual domain to collective domain. Accordingly, this delegation has made better and prompt decision-making. However, it remains a fact that political interference remains a big challenge for all government agencies, including NAB. 5. The concept of presumption of innocence. The concept of presumption of innocence in criminal law, i.e. the accused is presumed to be innocent until proven guilty beyond reasonable doubt, seems to be the bastion of fairness and the standard of criminal culpability against which the accused is judged to be given a fair trial. In an ideal world with the present notions of criminology, this seems to be the very backbone of criminal jurisprudence prevalent in all civilized societies of the world, against alleged murderers, rapists, thieves, and thugs. The question has often arisen whether the same standard should be applicable to the executives of corporations and people who are at the helm of affairs, not only in the corporate world, but in the arena of politics and governance, holding public office with immense power and influence. Such are the people who often exercise these extraordinary powers to their own advantage and benefit, and at the expense of the masses. It is reasonable to say that the notion of responsibility should not be divorced from such people who hold such powerful public or private offices. Professor Edwin Sutherland, a sociologist who coined the term white-collar crime, while disagreeing with certain basic substantive and procedural principles of criminal law, in his landmark book White-Collar Crime, published in 1949, dismissed the traditional mens rea, criminal intent requirement, and the presumption of innocence. He suggested that the rule of criminal intent and presumption of innocence are not required in all prosecutions in criminal courts, and the number of exceptions authorized by statutes is increasing. Sutherland relied on the claim that both corporate and individual defendants are routinely deprived of the presumption of innocence in criminal proceedings. Often, when convinced that a person or class of persons is guilty of white-collar crime, people become impatient with legal niceties. Sutherland and others who assume the guilt of much of the business world believe that the ordinary protections of the law also need not apply to persons involved in business. The term white-collar crime has expanded even further to include such a wide array of crimes that it has become too amorphous for analysis, and some sociologists even find Sutherland's very loose definition as being too restrictive. Thus, white-collar crime has now become a division of organizational crime. One example includes the U.S. Justice Department's efforts in some countries to force corporations to waive their privilege against self-incrimination as a condition of pleading guilty. This nascent trend is consistent with and sociologically derived from Sutherland's thesis that white-collar criminals are not entitled to the same constitutional protections afforded to other defendants.